Okay, we are live.
Perfect. Ram Kabir, everyone. My name is Shana Patel, and I'm representing the Bhakta Youth for Mental Health group today. And we're going to have a women's empowerment panel. And we welcome you to turn on your cameras. And if you have any questions, so please put it in the chat. And if you want to react to anything, you can use reaction buttons. And we're very, very excited to start an open conversation about how to support our women in our community. So we're going to begin, and Aarti is going to talk about some statistics.
Ram Kabir, yes. I wanted to start off by briefly talking about women's mental health specifically and give some background on why we wanted to hold this event. So research shows that there are large disparities or gaps in the mental health outcomes of women compared to men. For example, 1 in 5 women experience a common mental health condition like anxiety or depression compared to just 1 in 8 men. Women are also 40% more likely to develop depression and twice as likely to develop PTSD after a traumatic event. Looking specifically at Asian women in the US, including those of Indian descent, 24% experience a common mental disorder compared to 16% of white women. And Meenakshi Masi, can you please translate?
રામ કબીર, આજે આપણે સ્ત્રી શક્તિ વિશે વાત કરીએ છીએ. એમાં ખાસ તો આપણે એશિયન લોકો કે આપણે ઇન્ડિયન પણ એમાં આવી જઈએ. એશિયનમાં આપણે મેન્ટલી થી પીડાએ છે આપણે લોકો. એમાં 5 માંથી 1 સ્ત્રી એમાં એક્સપિરિયન્સ કરે છે એનો, જેમાં સ્ત્રી લોકો વધારે અનુભવ કરે છે પુરુષો લોકો કરતા. 5 માંથી 1 વુમન એટલે તો ઘણો મોટો આપણો રેશિયો કહેવાય. 40% મેન ડેવલપ કરે છે ડિપ્રેશન. અને આપણે શું કહીએ કે આ પાસ્ટમાં આપણે કોઈ ઇન્સિડન્ટ બની ગયું, આપણા જીવનમાં કંઈક બન્યું હોય એવી કે આપણે એને યાદ કરીને આપણે છે ને બીએ છે આપણી જાતે. ધારો કે કોઈ ઇવેન્ટ બન્યો, કોઈ એક્સિડન્ટ આપણી કારનો થઈ ગયો હોય, કારનો એક્સિડન્ટ થઈ ગયો પછી આપણા એટલી ટ્રામા પહોંચી જાય કે આપણે કાર ચલાવવાની પણ બીક લાગે છે, એમાંથી આપણાથી નીકળાતું નથી. પછી એ PTSD એટલે પાસ્ટમાં બની ગયેલા આપણા ઇવેન્ટને આપણે પકડી રાખીએ છીએ, આપણા મેમરીમાં રહી છે કાયમ, અને એ આપણને એટલું બધું ગભરાવે છે કે એમાંથી આપણાથી નિકળાતું નથી. એ આપણે ટ્રામા પહોંચાડે છે અને એ ટ્રામાથી આપણે લોકો છે ને આપણી જાતે બહાર નથી નીકળી શકતા. એના પછી ઘણા બધા આપણે ડિપ્રેશનમાં જતા રહીએ છીએ અને પોતાનું જે સેલ્ફ કોન્ફિડન્સ છે, પોતાનો વિલ પાવર છે, તે આપણે લૂઝ કરી નાખીએ છીએ. અમેરિકાની અંદર 24% એશિયન વુમનમાં આપણે પણ આવી જઈએ છીએ, ઇન્ડિયન વુમન પણ. કોમન છારિયા કોમન મેન્ટલ ડિસઓર્ડર છે. 16% વુમન અમેરિકન વુમનમાં 16% છે, ત્યારે આપણે 24% આપણે એનાથી પીડાઈએ છીએ. બહુ હાઈ રેશિયો કહેવાય એ રહ્યું એમ. ઓકે, ગો હેડ આરતી.
Next slide, please. So when we think about why these differences exist between men and women's mental health outcomes, it's not because women are inherently weaker than men. The research shows that mental health outcomes are linked to social conditions. For example, gendered societal pressures such as expectations of marriage, motherhood, household responsibility that are often placed on them. Women are also at higher risk of physical and sexual violence, with 43% of Indian women in the US reporting they've experienced one or both. And that violence can often be from people they know, friends, relatives, and partners. In fact, 16 to 55% of Asian women experience domestic violence in the US. And finally, considering both their race and gender, Indian women, the women in our community, may face additional inequalities and challenges to their mental health due to the fact they may experience trauma and stress from sexism and racism that they encounter in their lives, such as personal relationships, community, schools, even workplaces. This mistreatment can be subtle and impactful everyday experiences, like someone making a racist comment, but it can also be more extreme acts of violence like hate crimes. And as with the Atlanta shooting a few weeks ago, we've seen how that violence against Asian women can be misogynistic and racist at a devastating level. Meenakshi Masi, can you translate, please?
એમ કહે છે કે આપણે સ્ત્રી અને પુરુષો, તો સ્ત્રી કઈ વિકર નથી કે આપણે એટલા બધા શું કે અશક્તિમાન નથી. આપણી પાસે પણ ભગવાને શક્તિ આપી છે, પરંતુ સ્ત્રી એમ કહેવાય છે વુમન, કે એને એ રીતે જોવામાં જે રીતે આપે છે કે ડિફરન્સ જોવા આવે કે સ્ત્રી અને પુરુષનો ડિફરન્સ જોવામાં આવે છે. એટલે એની અંદર ઘણી વાર આપણું સોશિયલ કન્ડિશન એવી હોય કે આપણા સમાજની અંદર, આપણા પોતાના સમાજ કે બધા ડિસિઝન આપણે જે સમાજમાંથી આવીએ છીએ, ખાસ આપણે ઇન્ડિયનની જો વાત કરું તો કે પુરુષ પ્રધાન દેશમાંથી આપણે આવીએ, એટલે આપણા ઘરમાં પણ એમ પણ કે તમને ખબર નહીં પડે, એ એક મેન્ટાલિટી જે આપણા માઇન્ડમાં, સ્ત્રીઓના માઇન્ડમાં આવી ગઈ છે કે સ્ત્રીઓને સમજ ઓછી પડે. એના માટે થઈને આપણે લોકો મેન્ટલથી એ રીતે ટેવાઈ ગયેલા હોય કે ના આપણને સમજ, એટલે ડિફરન્સ આપણે જેન્ડર ડિફરન્સ મીન્સ કે સ્ત્રીઓ અને પુરુષોનો, એટલે સોશિયલી એમાં અટેચ થઈ જાય કે સોશિયલમાં પણ આપણે લઈ લઈએ છીએ. અમેરિકાની અંદર ઇન્ક્રીઝ રિસ્ક ઓફ ફિઝિકલ અને સેક્સ્યુઅલ વાયોલન્સ, ખાસ તો ઇન્ડિયન, અમેરિકામાં નહીં પણ આપણે ઇન્ડિયન વુમનની અંદર. આપણા સમાજમાં તો ઘણું ઓછું છે, પણ આપણે લોકો બોલતા નથી, કોઈ દિવસ વાત નથી કરતા અને કોઈ હેલ્પ નથી લેતા, કારણ કે આપણને બીક લાગે છે કે સમાજ શું કહેશે. હું જો કોઈને જણાવીશ કે મને આ તકલીફ છે, મને સેક્સ્યુઅલી, ઘરમાં પોતાના હસબન્ડ પણ આપણે સેક્સ્યુઅલી એબ્યુઝ કરતા હોય પણ આપણે બોલીએ નહીં. ઘણી વાર ફિઝિકલ પણ ઘણાને ત્યાં મારતા હોય છે કે વર્બલી પણ એ દુઃખ પહોંચાડતા હોય પણ વાત નથી કરતા. ડોમેસ્ટિક વાયોલન્સ 16 to 55% ઓફ એશિયન વુમન, એશિયન વુમનમાં આપણે એટલો મોટા રેટમાં છે ને ડિસ્ક્રિમિનેશન, સેક્સિઝમ, કારણ કે વુમન છે, આપણે સ્ત્રી, એટલે સ્ત્રી એમ માને કે એ લોકોને સમય ડિસ્ક્રિમિનેશન થાય. સ્ત્રી અને પુરુષમાં બહુ ડિસ્ક્રિમિનેશન છે. અમેરિકામાં આપણે જોઈએ છે તો ઘણું છે. અને હમણાં જે વાત કરી આરતીએ કે ઘણી વાર સ્કૂલમાં આપણે ભણીએ છીએ કે કોલેજમાં જઈએ છીએ, આપણી સ્કિન અહીંયા આ દેશમાં આવ્યો એટલે સ્કિન પણ આપણે ગમે તેટલા સ્માર્ટ હોય છે એમ તે પણ ના, આપણે શેમાં ગણે, તમે અમેરિકન બોર્ન છો, અમે તો ઇન્ડિયાથી આવ્યા છો, પણ અમેરિકન બોર્ન કિડ્સને પણ પૂછશે કે વેર આર યુ ફ્રોમ, તમે ક્યાંથી આવ્યા છો. ભલે અમેરિકન બોર્ન હશે તો પણ આપણી ચામડી જોઈને કહેશે. એ પણ એક આપણને ડિસ્ક્રિમિનેશન જ કર્યું કે રેશિયલ, ને એ બધી ડ્રામા આપણા માઇન્ડમાં પહોંચે છે ત્યારે આપણે આપણી જે શક્તિ હોય છે વુમનની, સ્ત્રીઓની, તે બહાર નીકળવા નથી દેતી અને આપણે એનાથી પીડાઈએ છીએ. ઓકે આરતી.
Next slide, please. So what do we do about all this? It's of course not going to be a simple fix, but some of the ways we can start is by challenging sexism and discrimination in our daily life, calling out friends and family on those offhand comments, promoting equality in family, community, education, and workplace, having those open conversations in our families and community about injustice and mental health, and then making sure that in those conversations we are making a true effort to actively listen to women and hear their voice on these issues. And so these 4 points, especially the last two about open conversation and listening, are really what we are hoping to do today with this panel.
આરતીએ વાત કરી કે આપણે આને કઈ રીતે આપણા જીવનમાં આને ડિસ્ક્રિમિનેશન આપણા એમાંથી કાઢી શકીએ, તો શું કરવું જોઈએ. આપણે આપણો જેન્ડર છે, આપણે સ્ત્રી છે, તેને ડિસ્ક્રિમિનેશન, તે આપણા દરરોજની લાઈફમાં પણ આપણે એની વાતો કરવી જોઈએ, આપણા ઓપનનેસ રહેવી જોઈએ. આપણે આપણા જે બીજાને પણ, આપણા ફ્રેન્ડ્સ હોય કે કોઈને પણ આપણે વાત કરીએ, ખાસ તો આપણા ઘરમાં જ પહેલા તો કે આપણે ત્યાં છોકરો હોય કે છોકરી હોય, તો છોકરી માટે ઘરમાં પેરેન્ટ્સ લોકો પણ એ વિચાર કે એ તો છોકરી છે, કાલે જશે કોઈના ઘરે, એટલે આપણે એના પર ઓછું ધ્યાન રાખવાનું, છોકરાને વધારે આપણે મહત્વ આપવાનું. એટલે ઘરમાં જ પહેલું તો ડિસ્ક્રિમિનેશન થાય. આપણે આજે તો નથી થતું પણ પહેલા થતું હતું, પણ આના માટે પણ આપણે વાત કરવી જોઈએ. પછી જોબ કરવા, તમે કોલેજ જાઓ, જોબ કરવા માંડો, ત્યાં પણ અહીંયા તો બને જ છે કે સ્ત્રી છે એટલે એને આગળ વધવા નહીં દે, કારણ કે ઘણી વાર એમ વિચાર કરે કોઈ જોબ વાળા કે એ કાલે પરણી જશે, બાળક થશે તો અમારી કંપનીનું શું થશે, કે જોબ પરથી લીવ પર જશે. બધું આ બધું પણ સો મેની થિંગ્સ અંદર થયું. એટલે આની માટે ઓપનલી ડિસ્કશન થવું જોઈએ, હિંમત રાખીને કરવું જોઈએ. માની નહીં લેવાનું કે હું સ્ત્રી છું એટલે મારે આ જ રીતે મારે જીવન છે, નહીં. આપણી પાસે પોતાને ટ્રસ્ટ કરો, પોતાની શક્તિ છે તેને બહાર કાઢો અને પોઝિટિવલી માઇન્ડથી પોઝિટિવ રહેશો. ઇફ યુ લવ યોર સેલ્ફ, પોતાની જાતને પ્રેમ કરો કે હું પણ કંઈક કરી શકીશ, તો એ રીતે આપણે એમાંથી બહાર નીકળી શકીએ અને ઓપનલી આનું ડિસ્કશન કરશું. ને આપણને કોઈ સાંભળે છે બરાબર તો ખબર પડે કે બરાબર જેની સાથે તમે કોમ્યુનિકેશન કરો તે પણ તમારા જેવું હોય કે તમને કંઈ માર્ગદર્શન મળી રહેતું હોય, તો એમાંથી તમે તમારી જાતે પણ નીકળી શકો છો અને કોઈની મદદ પણ લઈ શકો છો. ઓકે આરતી.
Okay, and then now we can pass it over to Shayna to introduce our panelists.
Ram Kabir, everyone. So after what Aarti just described in Meenakshi, thank you. Those are just some statistics to really open our eyes as to what is going on and how we can really help and do better. And so what better way to do that than to bring in women from our own community of all ages, all backgrounds. And we really want to highlight and have and start an open conversation of just women in our community and what we can do to better ourselves, to listen, and to aid each other. So we're going to start off with our first presenter, and I ask each panelist to just introduce themselves when we get to your slide. You can go, Lucy. So Sumitima, Ram Kabir, if you could just say something really quickly, and then we'll go into the questions, Bachi.
Ram Kabir, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to be a panelist at this event. Growing up, I was taught women can build a home, but now I feel that it takes the support of all family members to make the home. As women, we can influence social changes within the family and our community. I like volunteering at culture events, especially with directing the culture plays. I feel these plays may help all the different generations have a bit.
Please mute yourselves, please.
એટલા પોટા છે
તમને એકલા પહોંચતા જુએ કે
દાણા જોવે હા એટલે પણ આ તો તને
Okay, sorry, Ma, you can go ahead.
Okay. I feel these plays may help all the different generations have a better understanding of our culture and religion. These plays give me an opportunity to empower myself and others by coming together as a team. This gives many the opportunity to make connection and empower them outside of their home. It gives them a platform to explore their creativity, learn about themselves and others, encourage team building by cooking and making costumes together and just having a fun. Thank you very much, Ram Kabir.
Okay, we can go on to our next slide and our next presenter. Thank you, Ma.
Hello, Sone Ram Kabir. My name is Chaya Bhakta, and I surprisingly was president of the Northern California Mahila Mandal for a year or two. And I say surprisingly because I cannot sing a bhajan to save my life. But I think what they wanted was like someone young to organize and create a group. I've also worked in pharmaceutical and biotech industry for 13 years before moving back down to Southern California, where I grew up, just to be closer to my parents. I would like to thank the organizers of this for bringing this to the limelight, so to speak, and making it a forefront issue, because we as women quite often do not address the issues that we have or talk about it. We might have a small group of friends or people we can confide in, but not openly discuss multi-generationally to address some of the issues and the things that get said and done. And I know this is an unusual request, but I was hoping that maybe we can take a few seconds out and remember those who have passed in the past year and a half and pray for the people in India, our brothers and sisters who are struggling so much right now. So please keep them in your prayers. And yeah, look forward to the rest of the panel.
Thank you so much. And yes, we've all suffered a lot of loss recently, so I appreciate you saying that. We can go ahead, thank you so much. So we can go ahead and move on to our next speaker.
Hi everyone, Sonia Ramkabir. I'm Bhavani Chandra Bhakta. I am very thankful that you have organized this panel to just bring attention to something that is typically unspoken. And I, just for work, I'm a high school assistant principal. I taught for about 10 years and then I moved into school administration. And when Shayna asked me to kind of just give some, a reason why women's empowerment is important to me, I thought of this quote. Really, it is, the feminine is the most powerful dimension of life. Without feminine energy or Shakti, there would be no existence. And so if we think of the word Shakti too, it means feminine energy, right? So when somebody's ill or going through something traumatic or, a loss or anything like that, a typical thing we say is Shakti Rakjo, right? And what we're saying is keep the feminine in you, that strength and that power, right? And so when we recognize that a word like Shakti, beneath that is feminine energy, it's there. And we use that to uplift our women, right? And we use it blanketly across men and women, right? The word Shakti. So I think there's a lot there and it's just uncovered, especially in our community where, we're kind of, it's a patriarchal community and that's the nature of our community, And so there's a lot there and I'm excited to be here. So thank you for putting this together. I look forward to what everybody else has to share as well and hearing the rest of the panelists. So thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Okay, we can go on to our next panelist.
Ram Kavir, everyone. Thank you so much for putting this together because I feel like the other panelists have said, we're all aware of it in the back of our mind, but we haven't had the opportunity to speak on a multi-dimensional level with everyone included, all ages. And I think it's just so beautiful and empowering in and of itself to have this discussion. So I am a lot of different things, right? As all of you guys are. Not all of my occupations, everyone equally recognizes or appreciates, but I value them. And I think it's really important that we dig in deep to our root and like Bhavani Ben just said, the Shakti within us, tapping into that and really allowing ourselves to flourish and then passing that energy outward. I am making it my life mission now to serve the community through holistic occupational therapy. So that's going to be focusing on the whole connection of mind, body, and spirit. And I am really excited because I'm in the journey of creating a private practice, and I couldn't have done it with all the support around me. So just so happy to be discussing women's empowerment and diving in deeper as a collective. Thank you.
Of course. So that would be all of our panelists that we have. And as you can see, we got women from all different backgrounds and ages. And I think that's the beauty of our community and that we don't touch on a lot is we often highlight the men in our community and their jobs, but there's so many successful women in our community. And the main part of today's panel is to showcase that. And so we're gonna go and begin into our Q&A section. So how this is gonna work, we have some pre-written questions that the Mental Health Committee has written out, and we're going to go ahead and have open conversation. And then after that, if you do have any questions you would like to ask the panelists or Arthi or myself, please put them in the chat and we'll talk about them after, we'll reference them after. But we're going to go ahead and dive into the Q&A section right now. So I'm going to start with a question to Ma. So what we're going to do is, yeah, Guli, you can go ahead and stop sharing and then please spotlight Ma. And then we'll ask her the first question. So the first question for Ma would be, how can men in our community be advocates for women's rights and inclusion? Because Ma has so much history with the plays, she's so creative, and still at her age, she's been able to do what she loves. And I've seen it firsthand because I've been a part of the plays, even though I'm a horrible actress. But how do you think men can help us be advocates for our community?
Speaking from my point of view, I would like to clarify in our community for men to be advocates. I believe our society first needs to stop referring to men as bylaw for those men who listen and support women in their homes. Our society tends to assume and say that this man does whatever his wife says. However, no one knows their personal life and household situation. When they are stereotyped in this way, many men hesitate to be themselves. By moving away from this type of thinking, we'll allow more men to advocate more freely for women. Men should share the household responsibility with the woman and vice versa, which we are seeing more and more happen these days. Women should also be included in financing or business decision when they are eager to learn and thus gain self-confidence. And this will help women as more independent. That's my answer.
Thank you so much, Ma. I completely agree with sharing household responsibilities, finances. It should definitely all be equal, not only for the sense of if something happens, for the sense of you should have the same knowledge, you should have the same responsibility, because both of us are capable of. So I really thank you for your answer. I really love that answer. So we're gonna go ahead and ask Bhavani Ben this question. So if you want to spotlight her. Okay, so the question is, what difficulties do you face finding empowerment as a South Asian woman, and how do you overcome them?
So, I mean, I think that this answer is probably in two parts. One part of it is, you know, feeling empowered in general, right? And then another piece of it is in my workplace, right? Or growing up in America. So one part of it is, you know, we're first generation, you know, born here. Our parents immigrated here, and as Sumati Auntie said, you know, they had pretty defined roles when they came here. Like the men had to figure out how to make a life for the children that they were gonna bring into the world here, and the women had a defined role. And basically, the women followed the lead of the man, right? And that's how that whole generation was established here, right? So then they have children, and they're figuring out how to keep Indian values from India and assimilate to an American culture, right? So in that piece, empowerment may not have been something that was on anybody's mind. It was like, you know, let's get established here. Let's get our kids to school. Let's get them to college and make sure they're and then let's make sure they get married, right? Like that's their vision, right? So and you can't blame them. You know, if I was to leave this country and go start a life in another country, I don't know how I would have done it, right? So we got to recognize that generation for what they've done, right? And we can very easily get into this blame thing, like men in our society do this and do that. And instead we can just have a forward moving conversation about things, which is what we're doing here. So one piece of it is, you know, as our parents raised us here, was empowering your daughters a part of the conversation? Probably not. You know, it was very much just being good parents and getting them to school and make sure they're successful, right? So I think that, you know, navigating this kind of independently as we grow up here and trying to be American and also recognize our Indian and Gujarati roots, going to school, going to college, finding a job, all of that is different because you're trying to be American and be Indian at the same time, right? So I think the piece of empowerment, one part of it comes from your family, you know, your parents and that upbringing and who is around you and who's supported you. And the other piece comes from navigating America as an Indian, right? And then as a female. So, and this is kind of like a vague answer in the sense that that journey for empowerment comes from within, you know, that confidence, that belief in yourself, you know, there's a lot of inner work that has to happen to you know, some people are just like that, you know, you see them and you're like, oh yeah, she's so outgoing, she's so talkative, she's a natural leader. And it's like, is it really natural or was there work done there? You know what I mean? And so that's a piece of it. Like it is very much an inner journey and whatever, you know, like kind of like the, who am I? What am I here for? What's my purpose? What am I doing? Am I impacting the lives of people? Do I want to do that? Do I want to make money? Do I want, you know, all of that. I think there's a lot to navigate as a female, you know, within our community. And I think also the empowerment piece, as much as I'm saying a portion of it is a journey within, the other piece is this is a call to all the men in our lives. This is a call to action for our fathers and our brothers and our husbands and, you know, our male coworkers and our male cousins to really support and uplift the women in their lives, you know. And what that means is, you know, you have your women who understand you, you know, if you think about like, you know, just us, we have our family members and our sisters and our cousins that understand what it's like to be a woman, right? And a female, and I'm speaking specifically to my generation, which is, you know, born here in America with immigrant parents, right? I think that you have the sense of community within the women. But what really, when you take it from like, oh, I have the sense of community, and what takes it to empowerment is the men around you who support you and bring you up, you know, and don't crush your dreams and don't put you into a box that says, this is what you're supposed to do and this is how you're supposed to do it, right? And a lot of times, you know, the men in our lives, you know, it's the silence, the absence of those conversations that go further than, you know, nobody may be saying bad things to you or crushing your dreams or, you know, telling you not to do something, but them just not saying anything and not talking to you about, talking to the women in our community about things, that goes a longer way. So to me, it really, there's a part of this that, you know, belongs to the individual woman, and the part that takes it to female empowerment is the men around us who genuinely support and encourage us and are not afraid to have conversations with us if their daughters come crying to them or if their wife is crying about something. You know, they're not afraid to have these conversations and uplift us. And I think that's a very big piece of empowerment, where, you know, it's a call to action for all the men in our lives, in our community. And you know, for the generation above us, it's not a skill set they have, you know? And so it really is a call to action, and it is kind of pushing those conversations. So if it is your dad or your brother, your cousin or your husband that isn't able to, doesn't know how to have these conversations with you, doesn't know how to support you and uplift you, then it's within the woman to push those conversations, right? Like that's where it starts. The silence does nothing, right? So I think that the two parts, it's a journey within for empowerment, and then there's men who need to support us.
I completely agree with you. I think one of my big main points when I talk about this is uncomfortable conversations are what creates change. And be it talking about feminine hygiene, personal problems, hormones, like everyday life, be it your dad, your brother, your cousin, your dada, those conversations are very important. And then also recognizing that everybody's journey is different. Like our parents came from India or Africa and now they're here. So definitely I agree with everything that you've said. So thank you for that answer. So we're gonna go on and I'm gonna ask Chaya Bhakta this question. So if you wanna go ahead and spotlight her. So the question is, how is women's mental health affected by various societal norms and pressures put on women in the community? And as a community, what can we do to help ease those pressures and break them down?
I think that for me, I feel like unity is really big because everyone brings something to the table, right? We all have our She's a phenomenal cook. I'm learning how to make rotla from her, like the hand ones. Um, Things like that, like somewhat have other strengths, others don't have those. But if we are together, united, think about all the different strengths that people are bringing to the table. And as a group, we're stronger and more united. And I think it's important. So this question is kind of really loaded. So there's many different aspects to it. One of it is making sure we're united. And one of the biggest disappointments for me when I left Southern California was to see the split within our community, which is probably one of the reasons I haven't been as active in the community, is because I really dislike that concept of having Mundir and Hall. And we need to get back together again because we're so much stronger when we're together and where they're supporting each other. And you have more strength that you can draw upon. And now another issue I feel we have is I'm not sure if it's just the younger generation or if it's all generational, multi-generational, is recognizing when you need some assistance. Because quite often I feel like, at least for the younger generation, I feel like you take on all this responsibility. Oh, I can do it on my own. I can do it on my own. My generation, first born here in the States, well, I wasn't born here in the States, but growing up here in the States, I feel like we didn't have as many people that we could rely on to help us navigate this country that we're in, right? Like our parents didn't, like my dad could help me with a little bit of math, but by the time I hit like third grade, that was it. We can't do much more, right? And so there's so much that my generation had to go through and learn on our own. Now, your generation, Shayna, for example, you have so many people around you. You can draw on some of their strengths, but you need to recognize when you need to go and talk to someone. And as much as we love you all, and as much as we're here to support you and give you anything and everything you need to be able to recognize where your weaknesses are and draw upon anyone in the community that has that strength to help uplift you. So the opportunities are here. You just need to be able to tap into some of those. I'm going to go back and read the question again. And I think one of the biggest issue too is the societal norms that we have within our community. I feel like it's almost a catch-22. You're kind of screwed if you do, you're kind of screwed if you don't, and you're torn into so many different directions that it's so easy to fall into that trap of woe is me. How am I going to get through this? And because you're spread so thin, you don't have a chance or time to really focus on taking care of your own self. And I think it's important for us to take time out. I'm learning this now as I get older, to first of all, don't fall into the trap of woe is me. There's always a silver lining to whatever your situation is. And sometimes it's hard to see it. Often it's hard to see it because you're just so deep down and everything's so dark around you. It's hard to find that light. That's when you need to talk to people around you, a sibling, someone in your parents' generation. And if you feel like it's difficult to start the conversation, I told my kids very early on, if you want to tell me something and you're afraid that I'll be angry, you start the conversation by saying, look, mom, don't be mad, but I need to tell you something. So that tells me automatically, bring my level down, listen to what they're trying to say, and help find a solution. If you don't feel comfortable talking to your parents, then there's a in-between generation between you and your parents, because they've experienced some of what you have. And so they know where you're at and they can understand you probably a little bit, maybe it's even better than your parents can. Because even some women in my generation, I feel they weren't necessarily encouraged to get an education. For me, it was thrust upon us. I mean, it's like, you're going to go to college, you're going to do this, and it wasn't an option. But I understand that a lot of women in my generation didn't have that. So for some people who don't, there's the in-between generation that you can tap into. Like I said, united, we can be so phenomenally strong, but you just need to be able to say it. And I don't think that this is just for women. I think this is also for the men in our community. And a lot of it has to do with the way they're raised. I'm not blaming the parents, but if we raise our kids, our sons, to be misogynistic, then guess what? You're going to raise a misogynistic son, and he's going to grow up to be a misogynistic man. And it's all of our responsibilities to make sure that that doesn't happen. And men also, it's not just women's mental health that we should be concerned with. Men also have issues. just go back and think of all the times that you've heard of a fellow Indian man, Gujarati, who has taken their own life. And it's not by chance. They have mental health issues just as well as women do. And I'm not trying to minimize women's mental health. I'm just saying that it's a broad overview throughout our entire community. And then you start addressing the LGBTQ members of our community that do identify LGBTQ. They have a whole set of other issues that just being able to admit who they are, it's not often accepted in our community. And words like Sumati Masi was saying, like bailo, that's so commonly used. And we need to kind of address like, well, they have mental health issues that they need to be supported. And I know I'm probably going to piss off a lot of people by saying some of this, but I really think that as parents, we need to think about if your child comes up to you and says that they identify as transgendered or they identify as being gay or queer, what is your response going to be? They're still your child. You're still going to love them, right? And you need to prepare yourself for like if that happens. If anything, that their child could come up to you and tell you, you need to be able to take a step back and say, okay, what do they need from me? They still are my child. I still love them to death. I'm not going to support them now because I know this factoid about them. And I think that's very important for us to be able to create that open line of communication with parents and with the older generation, especially because sometimes, right, my parents' generation, the grandparents for you guys, they might not necessarily understand a lot of what you're going through or what you're feeling. So you do need your parents' support to kind of help navigate with the grandparents too. And I just highly encourage anyone who needs any kind of assistance, you just need to start talking to people, anyone that you know, anyone you feel like you can confide in, and bring it out to the limelight and let it know. You don't have to tell the whole world, but you just need to be able to get the support that you need. And a therapist who might help you unravel what issues are at hand and what you need to address and how to best give you the support that you need to move forward, because everyone deserves a chance. Yeah.
Thank you for that amazing answer. I completely agree. There's so many cross-functional areas that even when we're advertising this event, we're like, it's open to everyone, men, women, and we're going to do a series of men, LGBTQ+, like all these communities. And on top of that, the thing you said about supporting each other and playing to each other's strengths, not everyone's going to be good at everything. But I think, especially from my own experience, I'll take advantage that I'm the youngest in my family. So I have a lot of people to go through, say older sisters, older brothers, and them just understanding, being able to just talk to me, give me life advice, emotional advice, anything. I think it takes that first one uncomfortable conversation, even if they don't respond well, that's okay. There's other ways to like talk to others, either seek therapy, know when to ask for help. And I think some of the older generation associate help with as weakness, but help isn't weakness. It takes strength to ask for help. So I think that's super important and one of the great topics that you brought up. So thank you for that. So we're going to go to our next panelist, Vindhya Ben, and your question is going to be, can you describe an instance in your own life where you felt empowered either through your own actions or through the support of others?
That's a good one. I think for me, a couple things stand out. And it's when some of the men in my life really showed up for me. Once was my father, who told me, you're not our daughter, you're not our son, but you're a mix of both. Like, it doesn't matter what you are, but the qualities you have. And that really helped me because it was like, I knew it, but it was like being seen, right? So being seen and knowing that what you're doing and you're being heard. And it was like, he said, you have like the qualities that you can bring forward and help others. And I know that's my calling, and just knowing that. Another thing was once I was confiding in my husband, right? After feeling like, okay, I have all these goals that I set for myself. I have all these aspirations. And I just felt really out there, like, okay, this is just like, I'm weird, right? Like, who does this? Who thinks these things? And this was quite some time ago. And I remember we were in the car and he was just like, you're not weird, you're just different, you know? And that was like an aha moment. For me, a light bulb went off and I was just like, yeah, it's good. I'm different. Like, if we're all the same, how is that going to help, you know? And it wasn't, being different isn't a bad thing, right? And I knew that, but then just hearing it from the outside really helped. And then I think for myself, like when I think of how I empowered myself, it's just really digging in deep. I consider myself like a lifelong learner, and not just like educationally, but like transformative education. So like I really find it powerful to reflect on things that may trigger me, or things that, you know, I really get called for, or like just reflection in general, and then like sitting with it. And I've come to a spot in my life where, like, if I'm in a room by myself, I could be good. Like I don't need anyone else to validate anything. As long as I'm looking inward and I can draw on my own strength and my own power, I just quiet my mind, right? And I listen to my gut. And it's really proven to be one of the most strongest things. And like that whole mind, body, spirit connection that I found, it's something I'm super passionate about, and I want to continue passing that along. I want my daughter to know that she's totally fine just the way she is. She's enough, you know, whatever she wants to do, she can do. Whatever she doesn't have to. It's like non-judgmental acceptance of myself and others. And that's just really empowering in and of itself.
Completely agreed. I think empowerment, yes, it can also come from others, but once you feel empowered yourself, that's something someone can't take away from you. So I know we've talked about how others can help empower us, but I think what you touch on is important, that once we find the empowerment in ourselves, then no one can take it away from us, no matter what they say, no matter the norms. Yes, we can try and advocate for each other like all as much as we can, but that one meaningful spot of, yes, I can do this. It doesn't matter what I like, doesn't matter what she says, this Masi says, that society person says. As long as I know what I'm doing is making me happy and I'm a good person, I think that's super important that you touched on. So we're gonna go back to Ma. So my question for Ma is, because you have so much experience in our Samaj, you've been such a positive impact, what advice would you give to younger generations of women in terms of resilience and empowerment and just staying true to who you are?
Do not afraid to ask for help. Have open communication with family and friends to express your feelings. Remember your self-worth, even when there are struggles in life. Be patient with yourself and others. Support and respect one another without judgment. Follow your dreams and goals for your life. That's what I say.
Thank you so much, Ma. That was beautiful. So
Thank
now
you.
we're going to go back to Bhavani. So my question for you is, I know we've talked about like overall, but what are small things that you do to empower yourself? Like, be it like a daily attribute, affirmations, or what is something that you really resonate with?
That's a good question. I think, you know, on a daily basis, it's really, you know, knowing who you are, that kind of just drives, it should drive your daily, your existence, really. Excuse me. I would, you know, one thing I can say is like, love what you do. Like, that's a big place that people get stuck. And then I can list out daily things that I do that are just amazing, you know, that make me happy. But if you don't love what you do, you know, for everybody, you know, any generation, you gotta love what you wake up and do every day, whether it be like you're going to school and you're studying something, whatever your major is in college, you know, you're working and you chose a profession, just like choose it out of love. This is what I love. You know, a lot of times we get caught up in, you know, finding a money-making career, and money will, you know, it makes you happy to a certain extent, and then you're still stuck with all this mental unwellness, you know, because you're not doing what you love. So I think that's a really, like, to get unstuck and find this empowerment. Really, it's never too late to shift what you're doing for a living with your life change your major. It's not a big deal. Your parents are going to get over it. You know, it's love what you do, like live with love. You know, I think that's just such a big piece of it, because then you wake up happy every day. Who wants to wake up sad every day, hating what you do, you know? So I think that's a big piece of it. So now let me get that out of the way. Once you fix that part of it, loving what you do and what you've picked to do daily with your life, then daily, it's really, I think having a structured routine in your life is super important. You know, waking up and you have like, just like you brush your teeth and take a shower, to your list is, you know, meditation, calm moments, even if it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is, it's to start your day with setting some intentions for your day. What am I going to do with my day? Even if it's a, you know, especially women where, you know, they run the household, raise children, have careers, all of this stuff. And it's like, you wake up and you go, 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 go. It's like all the things you have to do. And there's never a moment where you're like, let me take a second for myself. And if you leave that till later in your day, it'll never come. So it's building that into your routine. If it's a meditation or just like calm moments, go outside, stand in the sun for 5 minutes before you start your day, and setting the intentions for the day. I think that in itself is empowering, because you're doing something in the morning that kind of lays out your day, even though we all have to-do lists and all the things we have to do. And, you know, so I think that a structured morning routine is just key. And in that time too, I think it's our minds kind of take over, and that internal dialogue, even if you're by yourself, or if you're in a home with a family of 5 people, you know, an internal dialogue always takes over. Like, oh my God, I should have done better with that. Why didn't I prep that before? Or, oh my God, oh my God, I'm so stupid. You know, all of that kind of stuff. When you start telling yourself that, you believe that. Right. So it's really stopping that internal dialogue and shifting it to, I am good enough. I'm worthy of everything that is coming my way. I can do this. I love myself. I do what I love, and I operate from a place of love. So I think it's every time that, you know, negativity takes over, and we all have it. It's, you know, you have a voice in your head that, you know, as Sumati Auntie also said, you know, and Chaya Ben said too, like, I can't say this auntie's going to think this, or, you know, our samaj, or whatever, right? Like all of those things take over, and it's stopping yourself there and shifting your inner dialogue to, no, this is who I am, and this is how it's going to go. And I'm good enough. And I can be this way, and I can do these things. And I think that has to happen daily. It's not I did this seminar one day and it was really uplifting. Great. It's a daily thing, daily telling yourself you're good enough, you're worthy. You know, you can share this information. You can have this conversation. You're worthy of it. And I think that has to be part of your daily dialogue. Whenever that voice takes over in your head, it's you to be able to shift it quickly to, no, you know, I'm worthy and I'm good enough. And a lot of times we externalize things like, oh, if only my husband did this, or only if like my kids they never listen, they all hate me, the world is bad, like all of that. When that takes over, empowerment can't even be part of your thought process. So I think like a very good structured routine, especially for women, to take that moment for themselves, because women spread themselves thin in every aspect, their work, raising children, running a household, you know, all of that stuff. So it's taking that time, and always in the morning is the best time, because later on, you'll lose it. You'll never get time for that. And secondly is stopping that internal dialogue, all that negativity. When it starts, stop it. The more you think it, the more you let yourself think it, the more true it becomes. So it's stopping that negative internal dialogue to a positive, shifting it to positive. Then empowerment comes, confidence comes, you know.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm the same way. I always tell my mom, I was like, give me my 5 minutes with my coffee and I'll be good for the day. And then also even journaling or even writing down, like, today I will be successful. Today I will take time to myself. I will get my work done. Just those little things really do impact you in the long run. And just taking out those negative thoughts, either if it's saying it to yourself in the mirror or saying it to someone else or writing it down, they're very effective. And I think people don't pay as much heed to, because like, that's silly, why would I like say it out loud, that's kind of weird, or why would I write that down? But I think making those small like positive changes is what helps empowerment overall, because it's not just like a I'm empowered, like an overall process. Like it's these little steps that like really result to it. And I think what you said was perfect.
You know what, Shayna, actually, when you just mentioned journaling, I wanted to add to that a little bit too, because like just as much as I said having a structured morning routine, that structured night routine is just as important too. And journaling at night, I mean, it helps you process your day and kind of just even, it puts into place that your intentions, like I am worthy, I am good enough, whatever it is that you're battling, and you're writing it down, shifting that inner dialogue and putting it down into words in the evening. I mean, I started this practice very recently, and it is 100% due to Raju Kaka. I know he does you know, he kind of leads the way with spirituality and yoga and meditation, all of that for our Samaj, you know, but he does that for us too. And because of him, I've recently started an evening routine, very structured, in writing down positive affirmations. And, you know, it may not make a difference in the first day, but over time, your confidence takes over, empowerment takes over, and you lead with love. You're able to lead with love in that way. So thanks for pointing that out, Shayna.
You're welcome. I completely agree. I've also started journaling and just writing empowerments and little messages to myself. And it seems silly at first, because when I was younger, I was like, that's kind of weird. Old people do that. And then as I got older, I was like, wow, this like makes you feel good. This is, and then you start telling your friends, and then they start doing it. So I think spreading it like that way, and just spreading the positivity. And of course, like you're not always gonna be positive, you're gonna have your off days, but always just actively trying to have that mindset is very, very important. So I do want to go on to our next questions, but we're going to go to the Q&A from who's listening and who's watching. And if there isn't any questions, then I can go ahead and ask more, but I just want to be cautious of time. So if you have any questions, go ahead and put it in the chat, or if there's anything you'd like to say, and then Binyaben and Chaya Masi can go ahead and touch on that as well. And we'll wait a few seconds to see if anything comes up. If not, I do have more questions. So it seems like everyone seems to agree with us in the chat. So that's amazing that we're bringing this to it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and ask Binyamin a question then. It's going to be the same thing as Ma. It's how would you give younger generations that finding resilience and empowerment, because there's also so many different perspectives, right? We've gone through different stuff versus like what maybe Ma has gone through and I have versus maybe what my little cousin's going through. So what's your perspective on this?
Like I said earlier with my daughter, from the get-go, it was always letting her know that she's enough, right? But what about when like all the internal demons come in and you like start seeing everything around you and you start not trusting yourself, right? Maybe it's people like the silence. They don't approve of your brilliant idea you thought you had, or remarks that you get. I would just say, really, to the younger generation, like you always have had the magic in you and the power within you. You just have to learn it for yourself. You have to learn it because it's in there. Every person watching right now has it in them. You know, whatever struggle you're going through, whatever situation you're in, it's there. You just have to figure it out, how to pull it out and use it, because we're all given this. And sometimes when there's hard times, you just really, really have to figure out what works for you to like get into that relaxed mode, like a relaxation response, whatever it is, whether it's your coffee in the morning for 5 minutes or meditating or journaling or going for a walk. Figure out what you like to do. I mean, if it's even something as young, like someone as young as my daughter, I mean, she loves art, right? She like gets engulfed in just creating, and that's her way of finding her quiet time. It's just do that, do more of that. You know, everyone is going to make mistakes in their life or have failures, but without those failures, you never really get to learn from those things, and you learn from each and every experience in your life. So really finding your own resilience is the most powerful thing. Just keep failing, keep struggling, everyone does it. No one's perfect, you know, share your struggles with other people. And if you see someone who's doing well and is balanced and you're like, wow, that's a really inspirational person, well, share that person with other people, you know, I feel like we're all about democracy and we want to do this together, but nowadays it's like we're finding our inner like strength, but then we're kind of keeping it to ourselves. So then there's these like there's these shifts like in the society where like it's constrained just to yourself, and then that's when anxiety, depression, pain, all that stuff happens because you're like keeping it to yourself. We're meant to like share whatever our passions are with others, whichever way you define that, right? And I just feel that sharing your struggles, your triumphs, helping others, asking for help, that's all going to just continue honoring women, empowering women, and keep that chain of empowerment going. Yeah.
I love that, just showcasing our individuality, because I think that's also something that when we were talking about panelists that we admired so much about Sumati Ma, is that she still like is so passionate about her plays and she put so much love into it. It's so apparent, like, and that she stuck by that for so long. And I think that's special with all of us. I think often sometimes we get into the little bulge of like, oh, she's a doctor or she's a lawyer and she's so smart, but there's so much more to like, maybe that doctor loves dancing. Like there's so many little things that are so important that I think we overpass and we don't talk about or share. And I think that's very important, that what we wanted to kind of get out of this panel too is to be like, everybody has their own passions, let's play to them, let's talk about them, and let's celebrate them most importantly. So I really love that response. Thank you. So we're going to end off with Chaya Masi, one last question. And so on a positive note, we want to talk about what is one moment where you felt empowered in our community, or just in general, like a story you'd love to share.
Wow, I was hoping I wouldn't get this one, but I was secretly hoping I did. Um, when I was about 15 or 16, I had a family member tell me a factoid I've known most of my life, right? That I'm a one of four girls. Yeah, thanks for letting me know. I have three sisters, I'm aware. But it was the way they said it. Oh, you're the youngest daughter. You know they're trying for a boy, right? Because our society is very patriarchal. And at that age, it hit me really hard. And I had never felt so small in my life. I mean, I'm a big girl. I've always been a pumpkin. I've never been that dinky, mickey, skinny little one. I've always been big. I've never felt so small in my life. Sumati Masi is laughing because she knows, because yeah, she knows I've been a little chunky my whole life. But I really never felt so small like I did that moment. And that carried with me for at least 10 years, 10 to 15 years, before I finally said, well, that's just one look at it, right? One person's perception of those facts that are there. Yeah, I am the fourth daughter, but how do you know that's what my parents wanted was a son? Maybe what they were waiting for is the perfect daughter, and the other three were just trial runs. And I am the perfection they were waiting for, right? I mean, there are so many different ways of, like I said, every situation you're going to see the negative that's going to make you crawl into that deep, dark, woe is me situation. But you got to flip it around. We don't know what my parents' intentions were. Maybe they did want the perfect daughter slash son. Maybe that is supposed to be what my role is, right? And don't think that I haven't told my sister this. I've told them they were the trial runs, that they were waiting for perfection. And they stopped after me because, well, they've got the perfect daughter. Why do they need to keep on trying for another one, right? But for me, it was kind of like I hit this point where I'm like, you know what, F you. You don't know what my parents wanted. And who says I can't be that perfect daughter slash son? My goal isn't to please you. My goal is to please my family, make everyone in my family happy, and to be there for my parents when they need them, when they need me, because they were there for me when I needed them. And maybe my goal in my life is to make sure my parents don't feel or keep being reminded that they don't have a son by being that daughter that's there when they need them. A lot of times, things will be thrown, and I wish it didn't take me a decade to realize that, but it did. And I think things were very different for my generation than it is for you guys. And I'm so happy you guys don't have to necessarily deal with some of those kind of issues, hopefully, because I think my generation is a little bit more thoughtful in that sense. Well, I guess I can't really say that because it was my generational person who told me that, but um, I think there's a little bit more awareness towards the patriarchal society and expectations that they have on us women and girls. You know, you don't have to be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. I mean, I know people who hate cooking. They don't want to be in the kitchen cooking, and they're out there making a living and learning to stand on their own 2 feet. My dad told me when I was 18, "You crazy? You want to major in music? What are you going to do with that? How are you going to support yourself? Don't expect anyone to be there for you to support you." And I took that with me, and I ended up getting my bachelor's in chemistry and biology, got my master's in organic chemistry, and started working in biotech. And I started learning to support myself. And I think that for women in our community, we really need to kind of weed out and take with you what you want. Don't You don't have to always accept everything that's been told or expected of you. You kind of pick and choose. A lot of like what women in my generation were experiencing when they were trying to figure out, am I Indian? Am I American? What am I? I'm the biggest coconut out there. But trying to figure out where we fit in with not just our Indian community, but the one that we live around, right? Um, so I think that it's very important for the younger generation to um, pay, like, I guess, was it Robert Frost, take the road not taken, take the path, the road less taken. I mean, make your own path, you know, uh, sing to your own beat, be your own person, be who you want to be. And oh, Bianca, really? I saw that. My daughter's posting on the group chat, and I'm like, anyway, and there was an instance actually not too long ago, 6 or 7 months ago. Um, I was so proud of my daughter because she told someone in my generation how misogynistic, how backward thinking, how screwed up that the few comments that they made were. And I was like, and I'm not even reading it from the person she addressed it to. I'm reading it from a second cousin who's like, this is what your daughter wrote. And I'm reading it going, damn, girl, I'm proud. Next paragraph, you said it. Next paragraph, oh, yeah. Last paragraph, oh, you crossed the line. And I promised my cousin, yes, I will talk to her. I look at her and I go, good job. I said I'd talk to you. I never said I'd support them, but I am going to support you because what you said was right. And I felt really so proud that she felt that she can actually go to someone in my generation and tell them why they were wrong. Um, and I think that we need a lot more of that from the younger generation. You do need to put people in their place. Don't be arrogant about it. Like, know your worth and everything, but don't be arrogant about it. Um, Try and do it a little bit more tactfully than being all up in your face. But you do need to be able to speak your mind. And I think it's very, very important that um, I think that's something you guys really need to hone in on. And when you need some backup, when you need some support, know that we're here for you. Recognize your weakness and make it stronger by getting the help you need. Yeah.
I completely love that answer. My family has this joke. They're always like, "You're not a lawyer yet, Shayna. Like, don't be like." I'm like, but I agree. If we can obviously respectfully and have these uncomfortable conversations that I mentioned earlier with maybe older generation, even sometimes it's the people in our generation that still have these views that were passed down to them, and being like, look, also listening to be like, okay, what is your perspective? But look, this is what we stand for. This is what we want you to hear and listen and be empathetic about, as in terms of like, don't be racist, misogynistic, and all of this stuff, and really just having that uncomfortable conversation and not listening to those little comments that say this auntie made or my fifth cousin said to me when we were at dinner a few months ago. I think these little things, and like you said, like you carry that with you for about a decade, and that's heavy because I feel like even now in our generation, some of us still carry, I know myself, like some comments that maybe a family member made to me when I was younger, I still think about those sometimes. So that also teaches us to say something, always think before you speak and think how it may affect someone overall, which is also a part of empowerment. And if you don't have something nice to say, don't say it at all. Also, also taking my like constructive criticism and like honest like helpfulness, that also plays a factor. But I think that's something big in our community, and I'm very happy that you touched on that. So with that being
But I want
said,
to
oh, sorry.
Is it okay if I clarify on something,
Yeah, go ahead,
Shayna? Can
go
I
ahead.
clarify something? I'm not trying to say that majoring in music is bad. If that's your passion, go for it. At that time, that I was told from my father. And I understand why he said it, but things are different. Now, I'm not saying majoring in music is bad. That's your passion, you go for it. You know, I mean, there are plenty of really popular Indian vocalists and musicians out there. And without that, I think, geez, I think music is like the song of the souls, right? I mean, really, it's very important for us to have in our lives. So I'm not trying to say that majoring in music is bad. Just wanted to clear that up.
No, of course, agreed. So yeah, with that being said, we've reached an hour. So if everyone, all of our panelists just want to give one final say, and we'll close off the panel from there. So Sumitima, do you want to begin? Just say a few words of whatever you have on your mind.
Just you youngster doing very good job, very educational, and I don't know how to say, but time to time, all youngsters get together, talk it out, respect, and stay everything in limit and positive thoughts. That's the most important thing in life. And trust, patience is the key. That's all I can say.
Thank you so much, Ma. Okay, so now we're going to go on to Bhavani Ben. What are your final thoughts?
One, thank you for putting this together. I think this is a critical conversation, and just it's the start of many things we need to cover as a Samaj specifically. We can talk tons of things, but thank you for, and just some of the things that came up in the chat. This is our LGBTQ community. They're not just out there in society, they're among us. They're our cousins and they're our family members, So thank you. And I hope this like kind of opens the door for a lot of things. One thing I do want to say, our topic is mental wellness today and women's empowerment, but I want to leave everybody, whoever's watching and whoever else you can share this with, that seeking help for yourself is not bad, and when I say help, I mean professional help. It's stigmatized in society and it's extra stigmatized in our community. Just the example of, when we're physically hurt, you have a surgery or you broke your leg, or, your neck, you have a pinched nerve, whatever it is, you got to go to physical therapy to fix it, to get back to full functioning. And it's completely acceptable to go to physical therapy because something happened to your body, your physical form, and you needed to go repair it. And a physical therapist helps you repair it. We don't have that same acceptance for your mind. When mentally you are going through something, emotionally you're going through something traumatic, it's like, just deal with it, or you'll figure it out on yourself. But if we just as easily go to a physical therapist when something's wrong with our body, why are we not just as easily going to a professional therapist when something's wrong with our mind or our emotions? And that needs to be okay. It just needs to be okay to seek help. And go see a professional. Yes, rely on our community, rely on your family members and your friends and whoever. But a lot of times professional help, it's not bad. I've been to therapy and I look back to myself, who I was before therapy, and how, just anxious and focused on some things that was just killing me inside, and I knew it. I was like, I need professional help. And I went, and I'm better for it. I'm happier. And I know my self-worth. I know what I was focused on is not important. And at that time, that internal dialogue took over, right? So I just think, going to therapy, talking about the fact that I've been to therapy, maybe you should seek professional help. It's not a bad thing. Everybody has things that take over in their mind. And just like physical therapy, when something goes wrong with your body, you go fix it with a professional. So when something goes wrong with your mind, your emotions, your heart, you go fix it with a therapist. And that just needs to be okay and accepted and talked about. So any of you that are listening, it is okay to seek professional help. And it is probably necessary. You'll be a better person because of it. So if I leave you guys with that, please, if you are in that situation, it is very easy to seek help, professional help, and I encourage it.
Thank you so much for being so vulnerable and talking so openly about it. And even after we conclude, we're going to provide resources as well for professional help at the end of this as well. So I completely agree. It's the same thing as physical health, mental health is just as important. And that's what we're doing so that we are able to have these open conversations to be able to break like that weird stigmatism and barrier that's been set forth. So thank you for that, Bhavani. So now we'll go with Chaya Bhakta. Do you have any last words you'd like to say?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Bhavani. You need help, you need to go get it. And it's okay to get it. You know, I mean, it's so difficult for, I think, youngsters these days than it was for us growing up. Because everything is right here, right? It's on Instagram, it's on Snapchat, and everyone's life seems so perfect. And I feel like there's 95% fluff, and it's like reality TV, right? Like 95% fluff and 5% reality. So don't go by what you see on Snapchat and Facebook and, oh, their life is so perfect. Is it really? No, everyone struggles. Everyone has their hurdles that they have to cross over. And oftentimes we kind of sweep it under the rug, and a therapist will help you lift that rug. And you'll probably hate your therapist in the beginning because they're lifting that rug and they're pulling out those issues that you really don't want to address, but it's very important for you to address those issues. So when you do start therapy, if and when you start it, make sure you go continue through it. Find someone with the right rapport that fits your personality style, and your communications should match them too. And definitely that there's always someone out there that you can call and talk to if you're not ready for therapy, whether it's like I said, in between generational person who's a little bit like 10, 15 years older than you, who've already been through it, whether it's your parents, whether it's your sibling, a cousin, an aunt, an uncle, whoever you feel comfortable talking to, just be there for it. And it's not just mental health issues. I'm talking about domestic violence. I'm talking about drug abuse, alcoholism, you name it, any issues that you need to be addressed for yourself to be healed and in a better position, you need to go out and make sure you seek that help and talk to somebody. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I completely agree. And I think one thing I always say too is Instagram is a highlight reel. No one's showing them crying over taking a test or something happening. It's very rare that people show their losses. So I think what you said is really important that you touched on, especially for the younger generation. It's something I've had to learn. One, the unfollow button is very liberating. And two, that everyone makes their lives seem perfect on there, or they only post the happy things, which they're entitled to. But just remember when you open that Instagram, Snapchat, to take it with a grain of salt and remember this is their highlight of their life. Nobody's perfect, and that's okay. So we're going to conclude with Binyamin.
Sorry, I was trying to find a research article while I was listening to Bhavani Ben. I was just talking about how, go to therapy. Sometimes you need the help. More than often, there's a lot of us that do, because I feel like trauma can be passed down generationally. So there's two things I want to talk about. Let's ask our mothers, our grandmothers, our elders, what is it that you wanted to do? Have you ever thought about that? Have these conversations, because a lot of them never really tapped into or had the opportunity to tap into what they wanted to fulfill. I mean, they're still here. They can still do something about that passion or that drive or that little thing that they wanted to do before maybe they got married and moved to America. And then talking about the mind, there's a research article that I was trying to pull up real quick, but I didn't get it. But I think it's about 80% of our mind, what we believe, impacts our body. So blood pressure, right? How many people take medication for that? How many people take medication for X amount of other body issues that they're having, anxiety, stress, depression, all those things? If you can get professional help to work on the hurdles that you might be having mentally, imagine how much more fruitful your life can be, So, I mean, I think, yes, ask the people that we come in across, what drives you? What's your passion? Have you ever thought about it? You know, let's keep talking about it as a community. And then also look inwardly and see, am I happy where I am right now? And what can I do? What kind of support do I need? Who can I reach out to? Thank you. And thank you guys for putting this together. Really great job.
Thank you. Thank you to all of our panelists, like taking the time and being able to speak to us and really just get that insight of different perspectives from our community. I think it's something we haven't had the opportunity to do before. And even if it's on Zoom or in person, I hope that we can continue to have like panels and discussions like these, because that's what's going to really cultivate change, this vulnerability and open conversation. So I'm going to go ahead and give it back to Arti, and she's going to share some resources with us.
Yes, sorry, just give me a second to screen share. Okay. Okay, yes, so there are resources on the right. There are some links, and I put them in the chat as well. Some numbers you can call if you need immediate help. And then on the left, we have our email, bhaktasformentalhealth@gmail.com. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can email us there, or you can reach us at Facebook, Bhaktas for Mental Health, or Instagram, also at Bhaktas4 Mental Health. And again, thank you to our panelists, and thank you to Meenakshi Aunty for translating, and thank you, Shayna, for leading us through the Q&A section. And thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you so much. And if you follow our Instagram, or we even have a Facebook page now, we're going to have all these resources in the link tree. And if you ever need or have any ideas or events that you would like us to talk about, go ahead and feel free to email us, and we're always there. And thank you to Meenakshi Aunty for translating, and all of our panelists. And we hope that we can continue to create conversation like this and show and push for positive impact in our community. So thank you.
Should we end the live session?
Yes.